Hi folks, in this video I'll describe how to get Emesh kit set up and running and explain some issues that have caused inconsistencies and how to fix them. Now if you're looking for a quick and dirty Emesh guide, then this probably isn't for you, likely because no such thing exists if you want it working properly and swiftly. But if you don't mind taking time out to absorb some tips and tricks, then stick around, because it'll help you achieve the earliest possible successes. Okay, so we're going to need a few things. Firstly, a mod box, and almost any with the standard 510 connector should be good. Having said that, I've come across a firmware anomaly affecting power mode wattage accuracy on some mods when stainless steel mesh is used. It's no big deal, it just means we might need to apply a simple workaround depending on our choice of mod. Now, the original Geek Vape Solo remains a firm favourite of mine, and it's completely unaffected by this issue. I've also recently tested a Solo version 3, and although I've got a multitude of other gripes with this mod, it does at least work well in power mode. There's detailed reviews of both of these on my website, but the Solo version 1's still plentiful on the UK eBay, and if you're outside the UK and still want one, or in fact a complete Emesh kit, then ask on the Discord, because we've got a trader member there who might be able to supply it. But these mods aren't essential, and today we'll be using our Thelema Solo Quest, which will be just fine once we familiarise ourselves with its characteristics. Also, we'll need a mesh RDA, and here we'll demonstrate with two types, the Mesh Pro clone and the Vapour Profile PS. Now, given a choice, if I could be sure of getting a good one, I'd probably take the Mesh Pro, but the PS is certainly a credible option, which will bypass those quality control issues often found on clones. Some mesh and Vantivate rolls are great if you can find them. Now, Canthalor Ni80 meshes theoretically get around the stainless steel firmware bug I mentioned earlier, but unfortunately there are a couple of issues which means that while they still might be usable, neither really provide a seamless solution, but I'll speak about these in more detail later on. Another option is generic stainless steel mesh sheeting in mesh number 150 or 200, and these will work great as long as we're aware of the stainless steel issues, which I'll explain later. Now, you can get these from eBay and Amazon quite cheaply, and in fact this is what we'll be using today. Apart from that, the only other things we're going to need are just a few general odds and ends. Okay, so we'll give our RDAs the usual inspection with a ×40 magnifying glass, scrape away any swarf and other debris, which is probably going to be more important for clones, but I'd say it's worth it on any RDAs. Now, on Mesh Pro clones, I'd suggest a careful check for quality control issues, because there's quite a few common ones we keep seeing. Now, the good news is that most of these are shown on my website with simple fixes. So if you've got a problem with, say, a screw not tightening or whatever else, then just head over there and there'll be a link in the description. Now, of course, we can expect the PS to be much higher quality, but we'll still need to set it up for series operation, which will enable us to connect the mesh between the two outer terminals, leaving the centre one disconnected. So to do this, we'll need to take out the default 510 pin and its little collar, replace them with just the short pin, and it's not essential, but I'll also remove the little sprung pads because they're not used in Emesh and it'll just be easier to clean without them. Okay, we'll give them a wash down in isopropyl and let them dry. And once they are dry, we'll then be ready for the mesh installation. So as mentioned, today we'll use our 100 micron stainless mesh sheeting, and I found it convenient to cut strips 34mm wide for the PS and 40 for the Mesh Pro. And of course, we can easily mark them out with a pencil and cut with scissors. And from these, well, we can just snip off strips of the correct width to fit our chosen RDA. So here I've cut evenly straight pieces because if we cut it to accommodate sidewalls and things like that, then the temperature distribution is going to be badly affected, and who knows how much extra wattage we need to compensate, or even if that's practical. So we'll just make things a bit easier by cutting it evenly for the time being. Okay, we'll switch off the mod, attach the RDA, and we can now install the mesh. And there's no need to go too mad with tightening the clamps at this stage, because we'll be checking them later on. Okay, so we've now got little loops, and it's just a question of bending so we can get that nice mushroom shape for the Mesh Pro and the picnic table style for the PS, but both with nice flat tops. So we'll power up the mod, accept the new coil, and we'll do a quick red heat burn which smokes off any residues, and it also seems to stabilise the resistance of it. One final check that the screws are firm, and yeah, I think we're ready to start testing with small amounts of spice. Right, now as it's our very first try, we're going to test it with just 10 milligrams of freebase, or as near as we can get to that. And of course, we can't show real DMT here, so as usual, we'll just use soap powder instead. Now, 10 milligrams might not seem like a lot, but bear in mind that the primary aim at this stage isn't really tripping, it's mostly getting the hang of the technique and a feel for that vapour. And because my scales aren't great with such small amounts, we'll instead weigh 50 milligrams and then just visually divide it into 5 equal piles, which will get us as close to 10 milligrams as doesn't matter. Okay, for the loading demo we'll use grated candle wax because it just melts in a lot more realistically than the soap powder. Now there's all sorts of tricks and devices to facilitate the loading, but all I've ever used has been a bit of folded paper and a dental stick. So if you do it like this, then I'd suggest loading along the mesh and not across it, and just take your time to get it right. And during the loading, or probably just once it's loaded, give that fire button a quick press or two, and that'll melt the spice into the mesh, and this just makes it stick and gives it a head start when it comes to vaping it. Okay, we're almost ready to roll. Now we'll be using regular power mode, but what wattage do we need to set? Well, that may be dependent on a few little things. Firstly, the actual dose we'll be using. DMT uses energy to turn it into vapour, so of course this means that more watts are going to be needed for higher amounts. In the same way, a larger mesh will take more energy to heat and keep up to temperature. So if we've cut a bigger mesh, say for an RDA like the Iris, then this is going to consume more watts than a smaller or regular size one. And in fact, coarser grades of mesh tend to be heavier and therefore take longer to heat up for a given wattage, as well as seemingly needing more power to maintain an equivalent temperature. Also the toke rate, and basically the harder we toke, the more watts are going to be needed to offset the cooling effects of the toke. Another big issue is that wattage set on a mod can differ greatly from the actual wattage delivered to the mesh. I mean, this is apparent from basic tests. Take a look at this, where all the mods here are set to 25 watts, and the differences are pretty obvious. Now, there are several causes as described on my website, but the main point here is that unfortunately, wattage settings aren't reliably portable across different mods, so we can't quote a universal value for all conditions. This is no real problem as long as we're aware that some initial experimentation is going to be needed, which is why we're starting off with small amounts. Now take a look at this. Here we're firing an Aegis Solo version 1 on different wattage settings with the Mesh Pro on the left and the PS on the right. I've tested the Solo version 1 and it is pretty good, so we can use it as a reference. Now from experience, the heat up time and intensity we want is probably the 17 watts for the Mesh Pro, which probably equates to maybe the 16 watts on the PS with its slightly smaller mesh. So basically, if we were using an Aegis Solo version 1 or a similarly accurate mod with around a 10 to 15 milligram dose, then these are the kinds of wattages we'd be looking at to start our testing. But how about our Thelema Solo? Well, we'll rerun the test using the Mesh Pro on both, but this time comparing the meshes from the Geek Vape Solo to our Thelema Solo. Right, so why are the Thelema Solo's meshes so much dimmer? Well, because it's one mod affected by that stainless steel firmware bug I mentioned earlier. Now, wouldn't it be great if we could fix this by using Canthal or NI80 meshes, but unfortunately it's not as simple as it sounds. Firstly, the available meshes in these are considerably coarser, meaning longer heat up times as I demonstrated earlier, but also the nichrome that Vape make their mesh from doesn't actually seem to be its usual grade, and it is in fact thermoelectrically very similar to stainless steel, meaning we're no better off. So today we'll stick with our stainless steel mesh, but simply set a few more watts than we actually want, just to make up for that loss. And the maths on this boils down to a simple conversion. So, because we want a genuine 17 watts, we'll start testing at a setting of, well, 20 watts. Now, this is only theoretical, it doesn't work for a red heat comparison, but it will get us to a good starting point for our initial testing. There's just one more point to be aware of on the Thelema Solo at least. If we momentarily pulse the button during a fire cycle, it recalculates for a hot mesh and the power immediately jumps to almost the wattage we've set. So we'll make sure we keep that fire button held down till we finish the toke. Okay, we've showed a lot of hot glowing meshes in this video, but isn't that too hot to be vaping DMT? And yes, of course it is. Meshes don't glow until they reach about 500 degrees centigrade, which is of course way too hot. But don't forget, this is under no toke conditions. During a toke, the airflow plus the vaporization of the spice will take a lot of heat out of the mesh, a bit like a blob of isopropyl on your skin under a fan. But this is why it's crucial not to have the fire button pressed unless you're actively toking, which will prevent problems resulting from overheating. Right then, we've finally decided on a wattage setting to match our kit, setup and dose, but perhaps the most important thing is our toke rate or how hard we're going to suck, so we'll chat about that next. Okay, so why is this such a big deal? Well, when we toke harder, not only are we cooling the inhaled vapour more, we're also diluting it with additional ambient air. And experience has shown that cool, less concentrated vapour also has much reduced potency, plus, perhaps owing to spice condensing on its way to the lungs, cooler vapour can often feel very harsh in the throat and airways. So the point is, we really need to be mindful of how hard we're toking. In other words, we want to keep the toke rate sufficiently slow so that we don't overly cool and dilute the vapour, but not so slow as to risk problems from overheating. So what I found works best for me is set the airflow ring to give a light restriction, start a slow, gentle toke, and as soon as there's a light airflow going, press and hold down the fire button. Keep the toke rate going for between 5 to 7 seconds depending on dose, but aiming to speed up just a little bit for the final second or two. Now, one crucial point is, during the toke, be mindful of the toke rate and vapour temperature as felt in the lungs, and adjust that toke rate up or down to get a gentle sense of warmth from the vapour. Now, with our small 10mg test doses, realistically we're not going to get much heat carried down into the lungs, even with an ideal toke rate, so don't try too hard. But keep in mind that when you start using more normal doses, like maybe 15 to 18mg or whatever, aim to slow the toke sufficiently to feel some warmth from the vapour in the lungs. And with this in mind, if you're toking as slow as you comfortably can and still not getting any warmth, then next time try a watt or two higher. Okay, when it's time, release the fire button and stop toking. Hold the vapour in your lungs, put down the mod, lie back, relax, and just see where it takes you. So what effect can we expect from our 10mg test dose? Well, personally, I can get anywhere between 0 effect and maybe level 1 or level 2, possibly even higher. It just depends on how well I optimise the toke rate and wattage for the dose I'm using. But for level 2 and higher, I find it more reliable to load a little bit more, say 15mg, and I can use the same wattage, but using that toke rate adjustment technique, actually easily get into level 3 if I want. Now personally, I'll never use more than about 20mg, and anyone using much more than this likely has some scope to improve vape efficiency. But yeah, with 20mg, set in a few more watts, and again modulating the toke rate to allow vapour to carry a bit more heat into my lungs, I can easily get anywhere all the way to insane level 5s, if that's the intention. Again, it all depends on how well I optimise the toke rate, duration and wattage to achieve that warm, concentrated vapour in my lungs. It's going to take some practice, so don't expect to be proficient at it right from the very start. Now, one common issue for newbies is they often find that whatever they do, the vapour can feel wickedly harsh. And in fact, this was me when I first returned from a 4-month break. What I did was forget all about tripping and just concentrate on getting reacclimatised over a week or two by using bite-sized sessions every couple of nights, practising with short tokes. I was soon able to get it back so the vapour wasn't an issue, and then it seemed like the problem never existed anyway. Okay, before reloading, smoke off the residual gunk from the mesh, because even with the cleanest spice, there always seems to be some remaining. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's got little or no psychoactive effect, so just burn it off. But if you use a higher wattage to do this, then for goodness sake remember to reset it back to your vaping wattage afterwards. I once forgot, and well, I never made that mistake again, put it that way. Right, now we've covered a ton of information in this video, and much of it's only going to make real sense when you run into a problem which you're trying to troubleshoot. Emesh is no longer my own go-to vape method, but we still get a lot of newbies joining who are keen to try it, so we'll continue to support it as long as there's interest. And there's loads of information on the website, and you can always jump on board the Discord for anything you're still not sure about, and I look forward to chatting with you over there. But in the meantime, hope you found the video of interest, maximum respect, and I'll catch you again very soon. Bye bye.